Welcome to Rewriting League's Lore, Part C. Setting, we are focusing on Demacia. I wanted to focus in on one location at a time because when I tried to do them all together, it was nearly impossible to keep that video under an hour and still delivering like useful content for people to kind of chew on. If you don't know what I'm doing, I want a League of Legends story now, right? With the release of the new Mbessa book, I just think it's taking forever to have anything strung together. Arcane was so good. It's clearly proves the potential that this story has, and I just want to get the ball rolling. So this is just a community-driven story. I'm running it, but I'm hoping to have these brainstorming sessions for people to help make something pretty fun. If you want more details, and that wasn't enough for you, I have a part 0 that goes into detail. I have a part A and B talking about heroes and villains. Fun stuff. But today, let's talk about Demacia. So before I start, here's some background if you didn't know. Demacia was founded by Targonians that were fleeing from the Rune Wars, and they found a petrified forest that absorbed magic, and then they settled there, and they became, just like it says, a proud military kingdom, using that petrified forest to pretty much create everything to be completely anti-magic. So if you're curious, here's what it looks like. And I don't really want to change anything here, except for in the culture, they pretty much made it illegal to be a mage. Even if you were just born with it, you're going to be imprisoned as a mage. What I want to change here in this multiverse, this other universe that is being created here, is I just want to have complete prejudice against them. I don't want it to be legal to be a mage. I just wanted to have like all the mage seekers and guards are just, if you're a mage, they're just going to make up false charges to imprison you, right? If you're a mage, they're going to say you stole something. And when they ask for evidence, the guards just say, well, you used magic. We don't have magic. How are we supposed to know? How are we supposed to prove that you did, right? You're being thrown into jail. Right. And so that's the big change that I really want to make about the whole culture, especially moving forward. So if you get confused or if you have any other thoughts, please let me know. But moving forward, that's where my head's at. The second thing is just be aware that all the cities and locations, I will be actively using them for maybe other purposes than what we saw in the lore. So don't get freaked out. And if there's some locations that you're really like your heart is in it and you want to make sure it's being used for a specific reason, let me know. But let's go and talk about Kayle. Now, I'm going to use this section where I know I'm talking about Demacia as a whole, but not as characters, but I'm mainly just talking about the region. So the best way to do that is through champions, it feels like, just to help drive and build connections for a lot of people. So Kayle is an aspect. I'm not going to get into her whole backstory. It just takes really too long. But the nitty gritty of it is that she's an aspect with her twin sister. They had a whole little justice force, but Morgana was starting to see a little bit more reason about just killing mages for no reason. Kayle found this to be a betrayal, and Kayle just ends up burning a whole city with her father in it for the sins of basically taking Kayle and Morgana away from their mother. And the retcon, all that's lore. All that's true in the lore. The one thing I'm going to change is I'm going to definitively say that the king sent Kayle away, like banished her from Demacia at that time because this was a sin, right? That's why Kayle left. I'm just definitively saying that right now. Like, she is not allowed back on Demacia because of that crime. Seems good. People have forgotten this, of course, and only that king knows. More on that later. But the people still idolize Kayle. That's going to stay the same, right? But people have forgot about Morgana. Well, let's talk about Morgana. She had to go into hiding after this incident. And I feel like hearing in the lore that the outside people of the great city of Demacia, like all the other neighboring Demacian villages and everything, they actually like mages. They help out a lot. Because Morgana defends people, especially against mage seekers, over the years, people have grown to idolize Morgana. So instead of being the other aspect of justice, she's going to be falsely identified as like a god of magic or the god of mages for the people of Demacia. And people worship her. This is going to be really important for the Civil War because I want this to bring not only Morgana into the Civil War, but also Kayle. to really help reshape Demacia. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Poppy. Long story short, Poppy is trying to find the owner for the hammer. In the current lore, it's very much implied that Poppy is the rightful wielder of the hammer. The one thing I want to change about this, or just make people aware of, is I want the hammer to be sort of like Mjolnir in Marvel, where Captain America can also wield it because the hammer deemed him worthy as well. So I want there to be another wielder that we are looking for the hammer actively in the story. And Poppy knows this. Like, she knows that she's worthy to wield it. That's why she's able to pick it up and do all the crazy shit. Like, she's very self-aware, but she's actively looking for the actual human that is supposed to be wielding this, because she's Yordle. She has other powers and such she can be doing. So that's a little retcon I'm doing. And it really impacts the city, because when Demacians see Poppy walking around the city looking for possibly a new person, people are excited, like, oh, is it going to be me? Right? Like, that's the whole idea behind it. Let's talk about Jarvan III and just generally the king. So the king knows all, especially in terms of like the Rune Wars, the aspects, the dragons, Shadow Isles, all that. The king has basically all knowledge of what's happening outside the world, even before the founding of the Great City of Demacia. And the reason for that is before they sort of went full attack on Titan and shuttered the people in, the kings in the past have kept really good record. And so they're very knowledgeable of what's going on. It's just that the kings have decided to keep this information in so that they can control the direction of Demacia to be this force of good. It just didn't really work out that way. So let's talk about this guy right here on the right. He is the head mage seeker. Basically, what I'm definitively saying is the king told him that we need mages to be used as weapons, and I'm scared to trust them. And so this guy goes, yes, sir, we're going to make them all criminals and imprison them and then use them when we need them. And that's sort of the whole story of Silas, right? Silas was able to see mages, so they took him and used him for years until he had enough information to start the Civil War. That's kind of where I'm going. If you have any ideas on it, please let me know. Vayne, not only just Vayne, but Lucian, maybe even Jin Zhao. I'm basically putting in that there was a special team that Jarvan the Third cooked up to deal with big threats like the Shadow Isles, right? Until they eventually broke up for reasons I don't want to say yet. But if you have any ideas otherwise, please let me know. But Vayne is Demacian and she has a place, but she's off doing her own thing. I like this because she's basically helping Demacia and the king's okay with it. And when they were in this like team, it's kind of like SEAL Team 6. They went and dealt with supernatural threats that normal armies couldn't deal with. So that's kind of what's going on with them. And when Vayne and Lucian come back to Demacia, they have the utmost respect of everybody because they deal with crap that no one could imagine. Quinn, as well as Jin Zhao, Fiora, Garen, and Jay are all commanders. So they all have their own units, their own armies, etc. So very different from Vayne and Lucian. And I wanted to just put this in there just so we're on the same page. And if you have a problem with any of the people I've listed, just let me know. But yeah, so the reason why we won't see Quinn in the big city most of the time is because her unit is specialized in the mountains. And the reason why we always see Garen, because Garen's always mobilizes with the majority of the army. So that's something, whether that's confirmed in the lore or not, I really don't care. I'm just putting it out there so we're all on the same page. Jarvan IV. So Jarvan IV was sent to a city north of the great city of Demacia, basically to be trained to be king, right? The king wanted to make sure that he was ready to go. So he is, in terms of my mind, like at the current point in the story, at the very beginning, Jarvan IV is ruling over a small city north of the great city of Demacia. And there he found Shyvana, and he started a secret dragon hunting team, kind of like that secret task force with Vayne and Lucian, but instead it's him and Shyvana and some other normal people that I'm kind of stealing the art from Legends of Runeterra. right? So their goal is to kill Shyvana's mother, as well as other dragon threats. And this is what's really cool about the idea that the king knows more than he lets on, is the king knows about Aurelian's soul, and what the other kings have passed down was that this guy is going to be a threat. If he's let loose, he's a big time dragon, like something like that, right? And so Jarvan the third told Jarvan the fourth basically this information, right? You need to be ready for king, especially for this scenario, in the worst case in this scenario. And he goes, dragon, problem, I've met girl that kills dragons effectively. Let's get ready for this big threat, right? And so that's kind of why I like the motivation for what J4 is doing, is he's got this knowledge of Aurelian's soul. On top of the Jarvan's knowledge, something that I really want to push is that we know that Jarvan the First died by Scion. Keeping that seems good. What about Jarvan the Second? So what I'm kind of thinking is Demacia has always been kind of anti-magic, but Jarvan the First dying against Noxus and their magical ways. J2 was a little immature and not ready to take the throne. And so he saw that magic was a threat to society, and that's when all the extra magic hate came from, to the point where they were criminals, right? And now Demacia does work with a unmapped city filled with mages that kind of help them protect against Noxus. So that's really cool. But yeah, so it's J2's fault. And then Jarvan the Third just kind of picked it up and said, okay, mages are a problem. Let's still militarize our forces and try to do something in the world. And then lastly, I talked about Shyvana, but Galio. I really want to talk about Galio. The first thing I want to retcon is I don't want these extra constructs early on, right? Like, they're fine if they come later, but Galio should be this special being for a while, and when he turns on, then resources should get put into him to help make other structures like him for the fight against like other magical kingdoms like Noxus. But what is super interesting is that in the blueprints in Lux's comic with Silas, I think it's that one where there's Swain's demon in the bottom. So the guy who originally built Galio many years ago had some help and is tied to it. And what I really want to put in to this video about Galio's whole concept is there is maybe something demonic about Galio. Maybe not as severe as Black Clover, where it's just a demon of anti-magic. Nothing like that. Nothing too crazy. But Swain in the lore knows about Galio. We have voice lines that prove it. But what I think is more interesting to kind of put into this is to talk about the culture of Demacia, is the reason why Swain hates Demacia extra, like a lot more than any other person that ruled Noxus, is because of Galio and the secrets that he has. And so Swain basically puts two and two together and says, okay, so if Galio is something they have, what else do they have? And that scares Swain more than anything. So he wants to take over essentially Demacia and find all these secrets, right? Because they're a newer kingdom, so what kind of secrets do they have? And maybe he was able to see like the vault that Rise stores the world runes in. Who knows, right? But that's pretty much the major part that I'm retconning, right? Those are the major changes that I want to do just in terms of like the setup, the general direction, to get people's ideas. Please let me know what you think in the comment section below. Until next time, peace.